Then a glimmer of hope, the Centennial Challenge, a legendary competition testing mental and physical prowess. Most aliens scoffed at the idea of humans competing, but Lawrence saw a chance to prove humanity's worth. He gathered his fellow humans and proposed a daring plan. They would train in secret, honing their skills and strategies. They had diverse talents the aliens couldn't even comprehend. But as the grueling contest unfolded, the humans delivered shock after shock. Their unorthodox moves and sheer grit astounded the crowds. Alien jaws dropped when Lawrence's team clinched victory in a final stunning upset. Baffled, the aliens investigated how inferior humans could have bested the galaxy's brightest. The truth that emerged rocked the university to its core. Earth, the human homeworld, wasn't just a planet, it was a crucible. Crushing gravity, toxic air, vicious predators that would eradicate most races. Inferno conditions that would have broken others had forged humans into the ultimate survivors. Overnight, the aliens' mockery turned to wary respect shot through with fear. If humans thrived under such adversity, what heights could they reach on an even playing field? Earth wasn't a backwater. It was a mythic Deathworld. And those who endured its trials, like Lawrence, were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy would never be the same. In the days that followed, Lawrence watched as the campus fractured along pro- and anti-human lines. Lyra, a brilliant avian engineering student, nervously approached him after quantum physics class. "I've always been fascinated by human ingenuity," she chirped softly. "Perhaps we could study together sometime?" Her offer of friendship felt like a lifeline in a rising tide of hostility. Amidst this powder keg, a cryptic message crackled over the comms. The Oracle, the university's reclusive alien chancellor, demanded an audience with the human students. Speculation ran rampant as to the ancient being's motives. Some whispered the Oracle would declare humanity unfit and expel them. Others that it would elevate humans to a privileged status in light of their Deathworld origins. The doors to the Oracle's chamber loomed before them, ancient and inscrutable. Beyond lay truths that would shape the future of humankind and the galactic community, for good or ill. Lawrence steeled himself, feeling the strength of his ancestors rising in his blood. They had carved a niche on a world that didn't want them to live. Now, in the heart of the galaxy, he would ensure humanity claimed its rightful place among the stars. Lawrence's jaw dropped as the source of the voice materialized before them. It wasn't an alien being, but a colossal construct of shimmering light in pulsing circuits. Holographic displays flickered around its central core, streaming incomprehensible data. "An AI," Gia whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's been guiding the university for millennia." Images flashed across the chamber walls. Worlds consumed, populations enslaved. A cancerous darkness spreading across the galaxy. Lawrence felt the weight of countless lives settling on his shoulders. A holographic display materialized, showcasing schematics for technology beyond Lawrence's wildest dreams. "I appoint you as special agents in this crisis. You will have access to our most advanced resources." Outside the chamber, an uproar erupted. Admiral Zorgax's gravelly voice cut through the din. "This is madness. We cannot entrust the destiny of the universe to primitives." The doors burst open, revealing a scene of chaos. Zorgax stood at the head of a furious crowd, his reptilian features twisted in disgust. Cygnus and his anti-human cohort chanted angry slogans. On the fringes, Lawrence glimpsed Dr. Kerr watching with keen interest, while Lyra offered a small, encouraging wave. "Silence!" the Oracle's voice thundered, momentarily quelling the tumult. "My decision is final. These humans are our best hope." Lawrence straightened his shoulders, meeting Zorgax's hateful glare. "We won't let you down," he declared, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. As they exited the chamber, a sour-faced alien with iridescent scales blocked their path. "I am Commander Vortix," he sneered. "I'll be supervising your efforts." "I'll be watching your every move," the iridescent scaled alien hissed, his breath hot on Lawrence's neck. "One misstep, and I'll have you ejected into the nearest black hole." Heart pounding, Lawrence rallied his team. They sprinted through the chaos-filled corridors, narrowly avoiding panicked alien students and malfunctioning security drones. They reached Dr. Kerr's lab to find her frantically working at a holographic interface, joined by a grizzled Saurian in military dress. "General Xanis," the Saurian growled by way of introduction. "The situation's foobar. Necrosphere's puppeting half the security force, including that snake Zorgax." Lawrence's mind raced. "We need to retake control of the Oracle. It's our only shot at stopping this." Dr. Kerr nodded grimly. "I've been developing a data wipe virus. If we can deliver it directly to the Oracle's core, we might be able to purge the Necrosphere's influence." A timid voice piped up from the doorway. I might be able to help with that." Lyra, the avian engineering student, stepped forward, her feathers ruffled with nervous energy. "I've been studying the drone security protocols. I think I can create a temporary blind spot." "Ready?" he asked. They darted inside, the chamber's eerie blue glow washing over them. Gia immediately set to work, her fingers flying over holographic interfaces as she sought to bypass the Oracle's compromised firewalls. "Uploading the virus now," Dr. Kerr announced, her voice tight with concentration. A searing bolt of energy slammed into the console beside her, showering them with sparks. Lawrence whirled to see Commander Vortex at the head of a squad of black-clad figures, their eyes glowing an unnatural red. "Necrosphere agents!" General Xanis roared, drawing his sidearm. "It's done!" she cried triumphantly. "No," Dr. Kerr breathed, her face ashen. "The Necrosphere triggered a failsafe. The entire system is shutting down." Lawrence's gaze locked onto the pulsing core of the Oracle. He knew what he had to do. "Cover me!" he shouted, sprinting towards the central interface. "Lawrence, wait!" Lyra cried out, but her words were lost in the din of battle. He reached the core, his hands hovering over the crackling energy field. Taking a deep breath, Lawrence plunged his consciousness into the stream of raw data. For an eternity compressed into seconds, Lawrence's mind grappled with the invading Necrosphere code. He felt himself fragmenting, his very essence scattering across the digital realm. With the last vestiges of his human will, he forced the virus into the corrupted systems. A blinding flash erupted from the core, hurling Lawrence's physical body across the chamber. He crumpled to the floor, unmoving. "Lawrence!" Lyra cried, rushing to his side. She cradled his head, searching desperately for signs of life. The chamber fell silent, save for the hum of rebooting systems. The Necrosphere agents collapsed like puppets with cut strings, their eyes fading from malevolent red to lifeless black. "Sir!" a panicked voice crackled back. "Admiral Zorgax's forces have turned on us. They're attempting to seize control of the university's defenses." Chaos erupted across the campus. The power void left by Zorgax's betrayal sent shockwaves through the alien hierarchy. Xanis's loyal Saurian troops clashed with corrupted security forces in the corridors. In the midst of the pandemonium, something extraordinary began to unfold. Gia, hunched over a malfunctioning console, jerked back with a gasp. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as streams of data flowed around her hands. Owen, the quiet botanist, staggered as a surge of awareness flooded his senses. The potted plants lining the chamber walls seemed to pulse with life, reaching out to him on some primal level. Dr. Kerr's eyes widened as she observed the phenomena. "Impossible," she breathed. "Their brainwave patterns are completely altered." A tremor ran through the assembled humans. One by one, they began to manifest abilities that defied explanation. Telekinesis, enhanced cognition, elemental manipulation, powers straight out of science fiction burst into reality. Before Dr. Kerr could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. On the massive view screens, a terrifying sight materialized. A planetoid of impossible size, its surface writhing with dark energy. "The Necrosphere," Xanis growled. "It's here." The human students exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. They had been gifted with incredible powers, and the fate of countless civilizations now rested on their shoulders. Xanis nodded grimly. "We'll need every advantage we can get. Dr. Kerr, work with these enhanced humans. Find out what they can do." As Kerr began running scans on the awakened scions, Xanis turned to his comm unit. This is General Xanis to all loyal forces. We are enacting Protocol Omega. Prepare for immediate evacuation and regroup at coordinates Delta 9. The campus erupted into frenzied activity. Xanis's troops secured vital data and equipment while fending off attacks from Zorgax's corrupted forces. Meanwhile, Dr. Kira worked furiously to unlock the secrets of the humans' newfound abilities. The Necrosphere's assault had been repelled, but in its wake, Galactic University teetered on the brink of chaos. General Xanis's gruff voice echoed through the command center, issuing a flurry of orders to contain the spreading unrest. Seal off Sector 7 and get me a status report on those human scions. Dr. Kira hunched over a holographic display, her fingers dancing across shimmering data streams. Their neural patterns are unprecedented, she muttered, eyes wide with a mixture of scientific fascination and barely concealed apprehension. Across the campus, the awakened humans grappled with abilities that defied comprehension. In the botanical gardens, Owen stumbled backward as vines erupted from the soil, writhing with unnatural vitality. "I didn't mean to," he cried out, narrowly dodging a carnivorous bloom that snapped at his heels. Gia fared little better. As she attempted to calm a group of panicked avian students, a stray thought caused their comm devices to explode in a shower of sparks. The avians scattered, their frightened squawks echoing through the corridors. "Abominations!" The harsh cry cut through the din. Cygnus stood atop an overturned grav sled, his tentacles lashing in agitation. "See how they endanger us all. Expel the humans before they destroy everything." A chorus of angry voices rose in agreement. The crowd swelled, a seething mass of disparate alien anatomies united in their fear of the unknown. Xanis's troops formed a protective cordon around the beleaguered scions, their weapons humming ominously. "Stand down!" the Saurian general barked, his scales filled. "These humans just saved your ungrateful hides from the Necrosphere." "Enough!" The imperious tone belonged to a Froven elder, his crystalline form refracting the emergency lights. "I am Sauron, and I will not stand idly by while ignorance threatens to tear this institution apart." Sauron's gaze swept across the assembled crowd, his ancient eyes settling on the human scions. These individuals possess great power, yes, but it is raw, unfocused. With proper training, they could become guardians, not destroyers. A hush fell over the gathering. Even Cygnus seemed momentarily cowed by the Froven's presence. Xanis seized the opportunity, stepping forward with a datapad in hand. "Which is why I'm announcing the Psionic Peace Conference," he declared. "Representatives from all species will gather to discuss the implications of these new human abilities and forge a path forward, together." The proclamation sent ripples through the assembled aliens. Some nodded in cautious agreement, while others muttered darkly among themselves. But the immediate threat of violence had passed. As the crowd began to disperse, a commotion erupted near the security hub. Commander Vortex, his scales still bearing scorch marks from the recent battle, shoved his way through a group of startled technicians. "You fools," he snarled, jabbing a clawed finger at the humans. "Can't you see? The Necrosphere chose them. They are the harbingers of our ascension." Before anyone could react, Vortex lunged for a nearby console. His talons flew across the interface, overriding security protocols. Alarms blared as blast doors slammed shut, plunging sections of the campus into lockdown. Xanis cursed, drawing his sidearm. "Contain that lunatic!" he roared, but Vortex had already vanished into the warren of maintenance tunnels. As chaos erupted anew, Dr. Kira grabbed Gia's arm. "We need to get you and the others to safety," she hissed urgently. "Sauron can help you control these abilities, but not here, not now." Gia nodded, her heart pounding. She glanced at Owen, still struggling to subdue the rampaging flora. "What about the conference? The other aliens?" "Going somewhere?" Zorgax sneered, his forked tongue flicking in anticipation. "I think not. The time has come to purge this infestation once and for all." Gia felt power surge within her, raw and uncontrolled. The lights flickered ominously as her fear threatened to manifest in devastating psychic energy. "Stand aside, Zorgax," Xanis growled, his own weapon trained on the Admiral. "You're outnumbered." Zorgax's laugh was cold and mirthless. Am I? I think you'll find the balance of power has shifted, old friend. My supporters grow by the hour, and soon this entire sector will be mine. Caught between fanatics, invaders, and their own volatile abilities, the human scions faced a crucible that would test not only their newfound powers, but the very fabric of interstellar society. Status report, he barked. A harried technician's fingers flew across the controls. Shields at 82% and falling, sir. We can't withstand this bombardment for long. Zanus nodded grimly. Initiate evacuation protocol Delta 3. Get all non-combatants to the shelters immediately. Focus, Sauron intoned, his voice resonating on multiple frequencies. Feel the energy flowing through you, an extension of your will. Gia's brow furrowed in concentration. A nearby datapad levitated, then abruptly exploded in a shower of sparks. She cursed, frustration etched on her face. I can't control it, she said, her voice tight. It's too much, too fast. A deafening boom shook the building. Dust rained from the ceiling as the lights flickered ominously. We're out of time, Zanus growled, striding into the room. His eyes locked onto the assembled scions. I have a plan, but it's risky as hell. Owen, still struggling to contain the writhing vines that seemed to sprout from his very skin, spoke first. You want us to, what, meld our minds together? Gia's eyes widened. But the strain, we could burn out completely. The humans exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. One by one, they nodded their assent. Zanus barked orders into his comm unit, coordinating the last of the defensive preparations. As his troops rushed to their positions, the general turned back to the scions. The next few minutes passed in a blur of activity. Sauron guided the humans into a circular formation, their hands linked. Dr. Kyr monitored their vital signs, her face etched with worry. As the scions closed their eyes and reached out with their minds, the very air around them seemed to crackle with potential. Slowly, tentatively, their consciousnesses began to merge. Their awareness expanded outward, touching the minds of nearby aliens. Atzinga's visual spectrum exploded into their shared consciousness, colors beyond human comprehension, painting the world in impossible hues. And Erex's olfactory senses brought new depth to every scent, each molecule a symphony of information. As their psychic reach grew, so too did their understanding. The harsh realities of Earth, its punishing gravity, its volatile weather, its countless dangers, became viscerally clear to the observing aliens. In that moment, humanity's resilience was no longer an abstract concept, but a lived experience. Conversely, the humans gained glimpses into the intricate cultures and histories of their alien peers. Eons of tradition, art, and philosophy washed over them, born from worlds far gentler than their own. The psychic bulwark swelled, pushing outward with increasing strength. It collided with the minds of Zorgax's troops, many of whom recoiled in shock as the fabrications they'd been fed crumbled in the face of shared truth. Aboard his flagship, Admiral Zorgax snarled in frustration as his communications array erupted in static. "What's happening?" he demanded, tail lashing furiously. Zorgax's scales flushed with rage. He opened his mouth to issue another order, but the words died in his throat as the psychic wave washed over him. In that moment, the Admiral saw himself through the eyes of those he'd betrayed, a power-hungry despot willing to sacrifice countless lives for his own ambition. Back at the university, the scions trembled with the effort of maintaining the connection. Sweat beaded on their brows, and blood trickled from Gia's nose. But still, they persevered. As the last of the artificial barriers between species crumbled, a new understanding began to take root. The ceasefire that followed wasn't just a cessation of hostilities, but the first tentative step towards genuine unity. Zanus, his own perspective irrevocably altered, stepped forward. "We have much to discuss," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of what had transpired, "and even more to rebuild." As if to underscore her point, a crash echoed from a nearby lab. They rushed in to find Gia slumped against a shattered display case, shards of glass scattered around her. I'm fine, she insisted, though her voice was weak. Just lost control for a moment. Owen helped her to her feet, his own movement sluggish. The vines that had erupted from his skin during the battle had receded, leaving behind a lattice of green lines just beneath the surface. Xanas's comm unit crackled to life. Sir, we've got reports of unrest in the lower levels. Cygnus is rallying support among the more conservative elements. The general cursed. So much for our moment of harmony. Kier, get these two to the medical bay. I need to address this before it spirals out of control. As Xanas hurried off, Sauron materialized beside them, his crystalline form pulsing with an urgent light. We must act swiftly, the Froven elder intoned. The window of opportunity closes with each passing moment. A galactic forum, Sauron replied. One where all voices may be heard, where the embers of understanding we've kindled can be fanned into a lasting flame. The idea spread quickly, carried on waves of hope and desperation. Within hours, representatives from every major faction had gathered in the university's grand atrium. The air crackled with tension as age-old enemies found themselves face to face. Xanas took center stage, his voice carrying across the assembled throng. We stand at a crossroads, he began. We've glimpsed a future of unity, but old hatreds threaten to drag us back into chaos. I propose we form a unity council where we can address our grievances and forge a path forward. Together. A chorus of voices rose in response, some in support, others in vehement opposition. Cygnus, his fur filled with scarcely controlled rage, shoved his way to the front. And who will guarantee our safety? He snarled. These human abominations with their uncontrolled powers? Before Xanas could respond, Dr. Kier stepped forward. The Scions will serve as neutral mediators, she declared. Their abilities allow for complete transparency. No hidden agendas, no deception. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Gia confessed as they worked to establish psionic wards around the designated neutral zone. Owen nodded, sweat beading on his brow as he concentrated on extending tendrils of psionic energy. None of us are. But what choice do we have? Gia and Owen struggled to maintain order, their psionic abilities straining to dampen the most violent outbursts. But for every conflict they managed to quell, two more sprang up in its place. It's not working, Gia gasped, her nose bleeding from the effort of containing a particularly vicious psychic assault. Sauron's crystalline form pulsed with an intense light. There is another way, he said, his voice resonating with otherworldly power. A total merging of minds, not just a glimpse but a complete union of all sentient consciousness. The proposal sent shockwaves through the assembly. Xanas, his scales pale with fatigue, nodded slowly. It may be our only option left. The chamber split into factions, those desperate enough to consider Sauron's radical solution, and those who viewed it as an existential threat. As the arguments intensified, Gia felt the fragile peace slipping away. With a shared look of dedication, she and Owen stepped into the center of the chamber. Together they began to weave a psionic web, drawing in the consciousness of every being present. As the merging deepened, individual identities began to blur. Species-wide memories intertwined, creating a tapestry of shared experience that transcended biological boundaries. Yet even as a new collective consciousness began to take shape, pockets of resistance fought to maintain their autonomy. Gia and Owen, their minds stretched to the breaking point, realized that true harmony could not be forced. They would have to find a way to preserve individual identities while fostering a deeper understanding across all species. The psychic convergence zone pulsed with chaotic energy as alien minds collided. Gia and Owen stood at the epicenter, their human consciousnesses stretched to breaking point as they struggled to maintain cohesion within the tumultuous sea of thoughts. Suddenly, a surge of xenophobic rage tore through the gestalt. Cygnus's mental avatar, a snarling whirlwind of fur and claws, lashed out against the encroaching foreign identities. We will not be erased, his psychic voice boomed, rallying like-minded hardliners to his cause. Vortix's necrosphere cultists joined the fray, their essences coalescing into a writhing mass of shadow and decay. Together, they formed a formidable psychic battering ram, threatening to shatter the delicate balance Gia and Owen had achieved. "We're losing control," Gia's mind voice echoed across the astral plane. Her form flickered, nearly overwhelmed by the onslaught of conflicting ideologies. Soren's crystalline essence pulsed with urgent light. "A new strategy is required. We must separate the incompatible elements before they trigger a catastrophic collapse." "It's not enough," Owen grunted, his astral form trembling under the strain. "They're too strong, too set in their ways." Soren's presence expanded, enveloping the human scions. "Then we must create a new realm entirely, a repository for these intractable minds." Guided by the Froven Elder's cosmic wisdom, Gia and Owen began weaving an elaborate astral simulation. Layer by layer, they constructed a metaphysical landscape that mirrored the most archetypal elements of alien existence. Harsh deserts of silicon and titanium sprawled beneath crimson skies. Vast oceans of liquid methane lapped against shores of crystallized carbon. And at the center of it all, a stark citadel rose. A prison built from the very stuff of xenophobic thought. One by one, the hardliners were excised from the greater gestalt and confined to their new astral prison. Their ideologies, once so fiercely individual, began to meld and mutate in this crucible of shared isolation. As the last of the irreconcilable elements were removed, the remaining collective consciousness stabilized. Alien identities still remained distinct, but they now coexisted in a sprawling mental metropolis of shared understanding. Soren's crystalline presence pulsed with unwavering determination. "They will remain there until they are ready to rejoin us. It may take subjective eons, but in time, even the most entrenched beliefs can change." The Gestalt consciousness pulsed with newfound harmony, a vast network of alien minds coexisting in delicate balance. Yet as Gia and Owen's astral forms surveyed this metaphysical landscape, a stark realization dawned. "We've achieved unity here," Gia's mind voice echoed, "but the physical universe remains unchanged." Owen's essence unfurled, tendrils of thought probing the boundaries of their shared mindscape. "We need to bring this understanding back to reality." Soren's crystalline presence shimmered with agreement. "A delegation must be formed. Avatars to bridge the gap between realms." In a kaleidoscopic burst of psychic energy, a select group coalesced. General Xanus's scales glittered with newfound purpose. Admiral Zorgax, once a hardliner, now radiated tempered wisdom. Owen's human consciousness anchored the group, a familiar touchstone in this sea of alien minds. "We come bearing a message of unity," he began, his voice resonating with otherworldly power. Before he could continue, Cygnus leapt to his feet, fur filled with rage. "Lies!" he snarled, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. "They seek to erase our identities." Chaos erupted. A surge of bodies crashed against the avatars, passing through their intangible forms. Vortix's cultists gathered in a tight circle, their chants rising to a fever pitch as they attempted to disrupt the psionic field. Owen's avatar reacted instinctively. His essence expanded, projecting a cascade of fractal patterns that blossomed across the chamber. Alien minds, caught in the mesmerizing display, froze in place. In the sudden stillness, Zorgax's projection stepped forward. "We do not seek to destroy, but to elevate," he intoned, his words carrying the weight of a reformed zealot. "Let us show you." Yet fragility lingered. A palpable tension hung in the air, as if the slightest misstep could shatter this tentative progress. The misstep came with a deafening roar. Explosions rocked the summit site, showering delegates with debris. Panic erupted as a coordinated attack by xenophobic extremists tore through the building's defenses. But a greater threat loomed. The summit's protective wards faltered, breached by Vortix's ritualists. A swirling vortex of raw psionic energy began to coalesce at the center of the chamber, threatening to obliterate everything in its path. As the maelstrom's tendrils lashed out, something unexpected occurred. Rather than destroy, they connected. Delegates, avatars, and even the attacking extremists found themselves inexorably drawn into a localized Gestalt integration. As the dust settled, Owen's avatar surveyed the transformed gathering. The path ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time, Genuine cooperation seemed possible. The science had given them a foundation, but it would be up to the species themselves to build upon it. The psychic shockwave rippled outward from the summit, washing over the gathered delegates in waves of alien consciousness. Cygnus staggered, his fur standing on end as unfamiliar perspectives flooded his mind. Nearby, a vortex cultist collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of empathy. What's happening to us?" Cygnus growled, his voice lacking its usual bite. Owen's avatar shimmered, its form pulsing with concentrated psionic energy. "The barriers are falling," he projected. "We're experiencing true unity." But even as understanding blossomed among many, pockets of resistance formed. A group of hardline xenophobes huddled in a corner, their minds recoiling from the Gestalt integration. With a snarl of defiance, they pushed through the crowd and fled the chamber. General Xanus's projected form flickered as he attempted to pursue. "Stop!" he commanded, but his words lacked the compelling force they held in the astral realm. The dissidents vanished into the university's winding corridors. Within the summit chamber, tensions mounted. Alien delegates argued, their newfound empathy strained by the chaos erupting around them. The avatars struggled to maintain order, their connection to the Gestalt plane growing tenuous. "We need a more permanent solution," Zorgax's projection intoned, his form wavering with uncertainty. In the astral realm, the collective consciousness roiled with debate. Competing strategies clashed as the science sought a path forward. It was Sauron who finally proposed a radical plan. The collective reeled at the audacity of the proposal. Creating entire universes? The energetic cost alone would be staggering. Yet as the implications unfolded, a growing consensus emerged. "What's happening?" a panicked delegate cried out. "Where did they go?" Cygnus demanded, a hint of his old fire returning. Xanus's avatar expanded, suffusing the room with calming energy. "To realms of their own making," he explained, "where their beliefs can play out to their natural conclusion." As the implications sank in, a new sense of purpose filled the chamber. The remaining delegates, their minds newly attuned to cooperation, turned their attention to rebuilding. With the most divisive elements quarantined, true progress seemed possible at last. Yet challenges remained. Reports of extremist cells hiding in remote areas continued to trickle in. Owen found himself dispatched to the outskirts of the university grounds, his botanical telepathy scanning dense foliage for any trace of sapient thought. As he reached out with his mind, Owen sensed the stirrings of a new era. The seeds of understanding had been planted. Now it was up to this fledgling alliance to nurture them into full bloom. Owen's botanical senses tingled as he scanned the overgrown university grounds. Psychic tendrils probed dense foliage, seeking traces of extremist holdouts. A faint whisper of alien thought brushed his consciousness, then vanished. "Soren," Owen projected, reaching out to the Froven Elder's essence in the Gestalt. "I'm detecting strange fluctuations. Can you perceive them?" In the physical world, Owen's body swayed as his mind delved deeper into the astral currents. The fluctuations grew stronger, resolving into discordant echoes of the extremist ideologies they'd contained eons ago. Dogmas twisted and calcified, pulsing with entropic force. "It's worse than we feared," Owen reported. "The parallel existences are breaking down. The psychic runoff, it's becoming toxic." Soren's mind radiated calm focus. "Perhaps we can transmute this force, channel it rather than contain it." Owen stood on the bridge of a psionic resonator installation, gazing out at the swirling streams of charged quarks, harvested from the decaying extremist realms. The raw power was staggering. As the new energy source came fully online, a wave of inspiration swept through the allied species. Xanus, the once fearsome general, now turned his strategic mind to grander horizons. The great seeding began. Massive arcs took shape in orbital shipyards, their hulls housing carefully curated biomes from 100 worlds. Owen found himself overseeing the botanical gene banks, ensuring the precious samples remained viable for their long journey. As the first world ship prepared to depart, Owen stood at a viewing portal, watching swarms of von Neumann probes streak ahead into the cosmic night, their mission to pave the way for new life across the galaxy. Owen shuddered, his botanical senses recoiling from the psychic malevolence. As the Ark plunged deeper into unexplored space, he knew their work was not nearly finished. The true test of their newfound unity lay ahead, in the vast cosmic night. Owen's fingers trembled as he manipulated the Ark's psionic interface. Cascading errors flooded the display, genetic sequences unraveling before his eyes. "Gia, we have a problem," he projected urgently. "The databanks are compromised." The Froven scientist's avatar materialized, her crystalline form pulsing with concern. "Show me." Owen's consciousness merged with the ship's systems, guiding Gia through corrupted data streams. Fractured gene sequences spiraled into nightmarish configurations, seeded with alien concepts that defied comprehension. "All hands, prepare for emergency transition." Xanas's voice boomed over the comm. "We're retreating to safe harbor." In the aftermath, Owen stood before the assembled Council of Elders. Holograms of affected sectors flickered, showcasing the spread of metaphysical instability. Xanas's projection expanded, battle plans swirling within his ethereal form. "I've recalled our fleets. We must strike before this abomination spreads further." "There may be another way," Owen said quietly. All eyes turned to him. "We've been fighting this like a disease, but it's more than that. It's an idea, a mimetic virus." He gestured, calling up schematics for a radical new form of psychic inoculation. "We can't destroy it, but maybe we can evolve beyond its reach." In the vast emptiness between stars, the Unmaker's influence grew. Reality buckled, entire systems vanishing into singularities of condensed hatred. The cosmic tapestry of interwoven cultures began to fray. Owen stood at the helm of the flagship, botanical senses extended to their limit. Ahead lay uncharted realms, ripe for seeding. Behind, an all-consuming void threatened everything they had built. "All systems compromised," Gia's voice crackled over the comm. "The quarantine has failed completely." Owen's fingers flew across the psionic interface, desperately trying to salvage what he could of the genetic databanks. But it was like trying to catch smoke. Each sequence he stabilized unraveled moments later, infected by alien concepts that twisted DNA into nightmarish configurations. The ship lurched, folding space as it retreated from the contamination zone, but the corruption had already taken root. Debate raged, but time was running out. Reality itself frayed at the edges, entire systems vanishing into singularities of condensed hatred. Xanas's eyes blazed with willpower as he made the call. "Prepare for total metaphysical interdimensional firebreak. We're phasing out." The next hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Owen found himself working alongside Gia, their minds merging as they coded impossibly complex extra-dimensional bridging spells. The fabric of space-time groaned under the strain as they grafted their work into fabricated stellar underspace tunnels. At the critical juncture, a desperate last stand unfolded. The Unmaker's fractal legions converged, weaponizing realities themselves against the nascent hyperspatial aperture. Owen and Gia spearheaded the defense, shielding the portal from within nested layers of consciousness. "We can't hold it much longer," Gia cried out, her psycho-noetic form flickering under the assault. Owen gritted his teeth, pushing his mind to its limits. "We have to. Just a little more time." He awoke to find himself adrift in an ocean of pure abstraction. Unfathomable geometries shifted and pulsed around him, mocking all preconceptions of space and time. The seed ship fleet pushed onward through this psychedelic realm, guided only by the fading embers of Sauron's navigational consciousness. "Stay the course," the Elder's voice echoed, already dispersing into the infinite. "The way forward lies through realms beyond imagination." Owen extended his botanical senses, recoiling at the alien textures of this non-reality. Yet even here, subtle corruptions proliferated. New Unmaker protrusions warped the escape route, forcing the fleet into ever more convoluted dimensional syzygies. As they ascended impossible perpendiculars, Owen clung to the last threads of his identity. The echoing cries of his and Gia's sacrifice reverberated through the fleet, a cosmic mantra urging them onward through the uncharted depths of mindspace. In the sterilized primary node space, Xanas's flagship maintained a tenuous lock on their target, an uncorrupted manifold plane. But Owen found himself trapped in one of the quarantine subzones, his essence intertwined with Gia's in a hellish landscape of ideological dead ends. "Owen!" Gia's voice echoed across dimensional barriers. "We're sinking!" He tried to respond, but his words dissolved into static. The corrupted memes of the Unmaker pulled at them, dragging their psychoforms deeper into degenerate ontological strata. In the primary arc, Xanas poured over distorted telemetry. "We're picking up distress signals," he announced, "but they're fractalized, bleeding through from multiple layers of reality." A junior tactician projected a holographic model of nested realities. "Sir, conventional rescue is impossible. The meme hazard saturation is off the charts." Xanas's eyes narrowed. "Then we make the unconventional possible." In the depths of a corrupted nodescape, Owen felt a faint tug, a lifeline of pure mathematics reaching across the divide. He grasped it with his mind, feeling Gia do the same. "Hold on," he projected to her. "They're coming for us." Xanas's voice crackled through the dimensional static. "Initiating harmonic uplifting. Brace for ontological realignment." As they ascended through layers of existence, Owen caught glimpses of other refugee ships, each trapped in its own pocket of distorted spacetime. He reached out, guiding them towards the growing resonance field. The strain was immense. Owen's psychoform frayed at the edges, threatening to unravel completely. But he held on, channeling the raw power of the dimensional shear zones to fuel their ascent. With a final reality-bending surge, they breached the surface of a virgin manifold. Owen's senses exploded with new sensations, unfamiliar spectra of light, impossible geometries that somehow made perfect sense. As the scattered Argonaut fleet regrouped in this pristine realm, Owen knew their trials were far from finished. The echoes of the Unmaker still lingered, a distant hunger probing the edges of their newfound sanctuary. He exchanged a weary glance with Gia, their psychoforms still bearing the scars of their ordeal. Together, they turned their attention to the vast, unexplored landscape of this higher dimensional plane. A fresh canvas for life, but also a potential battleground for conflicts beyond mortal comprehension. Xanas's voice cut through the dimensional static, his words tinged with urgency. "Initiating ontological charge differential grid. Prepare for extreme gravimetric fluctuations." Owen felt the fabric of reality twist around him as the quarantined nodal realities yoked together. Each pocket dimension bled off its unique entropic emanations, creating a dizzying array of fractal gradients. The shear plane interfaces interlocked, siphoning tainted ergometrics into self-rectifying harmonic patterns. "Singularity reactors online," Gia projected, her thoughts barely coherent through the gravific recursion. "Amplification at 60% capacity and rising." Owen gritted his metaphysical teeth, enduring near-terminal stress as macro-quanta vortices seethed against the containment lattice. Each quintillation brought them closer to breaching the degenerate attractor terminus, where their down-arrowing essences had been trapped. Suddenly, Xanas's avatar materialized within the chamber, his form rippling with distorted stellar cartography. "We've identified a critical outlier node space," he announced, "an entropic remnant of the xenophobic extremists. It could provide the missing interferometric differential." Owen's botanical senses recoiled at the implications. "The risk of corruption is necessary," Xanas cut him off. "Gia, your isocompression equations are our only safeguard. Can you maintain stable interlacement?" Gia's psychoform flickered, then solidified with restored dedication. "I can create a transient piggyback link. It won't hold for long, but it should be enough to bolster the amplification grid." Xanas's prime avatar converged with Owen and Gia's transduata shells, initiating the final psychotic Ouroboros resonance ritual. Their intertwined fractal subjectivities spanned ultrafine metric gradients, a dizzying recursion of identities across multitudinous permutations. "Now," Xanas commanded. As one, they upshifted their essentia into hardened quantum shells. The nascent manifoldic ovoid enveloped them, catapulting the allies across the threshold into a pristine higher plane. Owen's senses exploded with new sensations as they materialized in the virgin cosmic landscape. Unfamiliar spectra danced across his perception, geometries beyond mortal comprehension unfolding in every direction. As the surviving allies regrouped, Owen exchanged a weary but triumphant glance with Gia. They had escaped the Unmaker's fractalized desolation, but he knew their struggles were nowhere near the end. This new realm held both promise and peril, a fresh canvas for life, but also uncharted dangers. Xanus's avatar coalesced before them, his form adapting to the higher dimensional frequencies. "We've bought ourselves time and space," he announced. "Now we must learn to harness the full potential of this manifold if we hope to safeguard our future." Owen nodded, extending his botanical senses to probe the alien textures of their new reality. The echoes of the Unmaker still lingered at the edges of his perception, a distant hunger, temporarily placated but far from defeated. Owen and Gia exchanged worried glances, their psychoforms still bearing scars from their harrowing escape. The display zoomed out, revealing a tapestry of nested realities. At the fringes, cancerous growths pulsed with malevolent energy. "Isolated pockets," Xanus explained, "remnants of the xenophobic egregore, sealed but not destroyed." Owen extended his botanical senses, recoiling as he brushed against the outer contamination zones. The conceptual horror overwhelmed him, a tide of pure hatred and genocidal intent. Xanus's avatar solidified, projecting an air of unbreakable spirit. "Containment is no longer enough. We must launch a preemptive strike." He outlined his plan, a multi-dimensional invasion force to neutralize the Unmaker's essence across all adjacent realities. Owen and Gia listened intently, their minds racing to comprehend the scale of the operation. The allies sprang into action. Gia's consciousness expanded, weaving intricate mathematical patterns to form stable hyperspatial pathways. Owen tapped into the raw creative potential of the new realm, sculpting entire worlds from abstract thought. As the expeditionary new force assembled, alien shock troopers and Psi-Knights underwent hyperbolic purgation augmentations, their forms twisted and reshaped, adapting to survive the virulent Unmaker infection zones. "Splinter fragments!" Gia's voice cut through the dimensional static. "They're encrypting into deeper strata." Owen and Gia exchanged uncertain glances. The scope of such an undertaking was beyond anything they had attempted before. But as the contamination zones pulsed at the edges of their perception, they knew the fate of all realities hung in the balance. "It's not enough," Gia projected, her psychoform flickering with strain. "We're losing ground faster than we can secure it." Xanus's avatar coalesced before them, his expression grim. "We need a paradigm shift, a new metaphysics to circumscribe the entirety of their primal possibility hypersphere." Gia's form pulsed with intense concentration as she manipulated complex mathematical structures. "We need to orchestrate hypersync phase-lock harmonics," she announced. "It's our only chance to upshift the entire cosmic bulk." Owen nodded, extending his awareness to the Nova terraform seed worlds he had cultivated. To his horror, he sensed new insidious growths taking root. "The Unmakers found a way in," he projected urgently. "Some kind of spore form." As the resonant reality rupture pulses intensified, Owen felt the very foundations of his being shake. The blighted zones around them shuddered under the assault, fragmenting into irreducible quantum blanks. In that moment of ultimate destruction, a fleeting threshold emerged, a glimpse of something beyond their current understanding of reality. Owen reached for it with every fiber of his fragmented being, knowing that their entire existence hung in the balance. Xanus's voice echoed across dimensions. "Hold the line! We must stabilize the manifold before—" His words were cut short as a surge of anti-rational energy tore through their defenses. Owen felt himself pulled in 1,000 directions at once, his essence scattered across countless parallel incarnations. He struggled to reassemble his identity, grasping at fragments of memory and purpose. "Owen!" Gia's voice cut through the dimensional static. "We need your help. The terraplanetary seeders—" He understood immediately, extending his botanical senses across the manifold. The Nova-terraform worlds he had cultivated were under assault, besieged by waves of entropic energy. Owen poured his will into the bioplasmic ecologies, shoring up their defenses against the neutrino interference. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the twisted remnants of once thriving colonial clusters. Owen recoiled as he saw the virulent infection consuming entire star systems, reality itself breaking down into primordial chaos. "Our scouts," Xanas continued, his voice heavy with fatigue. "Most didn't make it back, but one, Azor. He's transmitted critical data. It's found a way to use our own emanations against us," Gia whispered, her form flickering with distress. Xanas nodded grimly. "We need a new strategy. Containment is no longer an option." Owen's consciousness snapped back to full awareness as Xanas's voice cut through the dimensional static. "We have a new stratagem," the fleet marshal declared, his avatar solidifying before them. The human scion listened intently as Xanas outlined the audacious counter-xenogenesis plan. Owen's mind reeled at the sheer scope of the proposed operation, deploying pan-continuum xenoforges into the very foundations of reality itself. "Gia," Xanas commanded, "coordinate the xenoforge cortex activation. We need precise synchronization of the hypercosmic accretion beam injectors." Owen watched in awe as Gia's form pulsed with intense concentration. Her consciousness expanded, weaving intricate patterns of mathematical code across the multiversal landscape. Streams of data flowed through her, guiding the precise placement of entropy loci within the nascent reality beds. Extending his botanical awareness, Owen reached out to the newly formed entropy blossoms. He coaxed them gently, shepherding their growth into the blighted realms. As they made contact with the infected zones, Owen felt a sickening lurch in the pit of his being. Gia's presence brushed against his consciousness. "Ready for the next phase?" she projected, her thoughts tinged with purpose. Together, they pooled their psychic energies, focusing their combined will on the swirling ontological debris. Owen felt the strain as they began to shape the conceptual shards, folding space-time itself into impossible geometries. As the hyperbolic tessor brains took form, Owen glimpsed fleeting reflections of corrupted realities, twisted mirror images of worlds consumed by hatred and fear. He shuddered, realizing these were the source continuums of the Unmaker's toxic ideology. Xanas's voice cut through the psychic maelstrom. "Arc engineers, begin erecting the transboundary barricades. Seal off each collapsing manifold as it implodes." As the last of the blighted realms twisted in upon itself, Owen allowed himself a moment of hope, but the feeling was short-lived. Owen's senses confirmed her assessment. At the heart of the voided realms, a ravenous singularity pulsed with malevolent purpose. He felt its hunger, an insatiable void threatening to devour all of existence. Xanas's avatar flickered before them, his expression grim. "We have one last gambit," he declared. "We must construct a higher entropic metric space, an exodus vector to outpace the incoming ontologenic shear plane." As the fleet marshal outlined the desperate plan, Owen exchanged a weary glance with Gia. The power required for such an undertaking was beyond anything they had ever attempted. But as the singularity's pull grew stronger, Owen knew they had no choice. They would have to push beyond the limits of known physics, venturing into uncharted realms of existence in a final bid to outmaneuver the Unmaker's ultimate assault. Owen's consciousness reeled as Xanas unveiled his audacious plan. The fleet marshal's avatar pulsed with intensity, projecting schematics for a metaphysical hyperlattice directly into their shared mind space. Owen felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him. As a xenogenetic specialist, his role would be crucial in shaping these new pocket universes. Xanas wasted no time. Transdimensional shipyards materialized around them, shimmering with potential. Elite xeno-architects from a dozen allied civilizations poured in, their consciousnesses merging seamlessly with the developing framework. Nearby, Gia's avatar pulsed with intense concentration. Her fingers danced across invisible interfaces, weaving self-evolving, anti-rational algorithms into the deepest strata of the newborn realities. Owen braced himself as reality itself seemed to stretch and twist. At the hyperbolic core of their construct, a transcendental singularity flared to life. From this point, an entire synthetic cosmological matrix erupted outward in a dizzying explosion of potential. Alarms blared across multiple frequency bands. Ontogenic stability compromised in sectors 7 through 13, a disembodied voice warned. Owen's essence trembled as rifts opened to the hellish realms where the Unmaker's thought waste still seethed. Slender topological waveguides connected these toxic, conceptual singularities to their newly forged realities. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Streams of concentrated xenophobic animus poured through the connections, coalescing into tightly bound anti-fact neocosms within their engineered matrix. Containment fields at 73% and dropping, Gia projected, her thoughts tinged with alarm. Xanus's avatar flickered into view, his form distorted by residual dimensional instabilities. "We've reached an impasse," he declared, his voice resonating across multiple planes of existence. "But I have a proposal." "You want to turn the hyperlattice into a meeting ground?" Gia asked, her form shimmering with uncertainty. Xanus nodded. "A neutral plane for dialogue. It's our best chance to break this stalemate without further destruction." The proposal met immediate resistance. Cygnus, his avatar filled with nearly unleashed aggression, lashed out. "Negotiate with that abomination? Impossible." Vortix's necrosphere cultists added their voices to the chorus of dissent, their thoughts a cacophony of dark intentions. But Xanus persevered, slowly winning over the moderate factions with his vision of a peaceful resolution. Owen and Gia found themselves at the heart of the reconfiguration efforts. Their expertise in metaphysical engineering proved crucial as they reshaped the lattice's manifold matrices. Owen's botanical senses stretched to their limit as he wove intricate psychocausal buffers throughout the structure. "Careful," Gia warned as she manipulated complex ideological frameworks. "One misalignment could cascade into total ontological collapse." Days blurred into an endless stream of painstaking adjustments. Finally, the reborn hyperlattice pulsed with stable energy, ready to host the unprecedented exchange. The dialogues commenced, tense and halting at first. Owen watched as avatars from once warring ideologies circled each other warily, probing for weakness. But as Lawrence guided them through carefully designed acclimation protocols, barriers began to crumble. He whirled to see a node of the lattice pulsing with malevolent energy. Zorgax and his extremist allies had smuggled in a virulent mimetic virus, threatening to unravel the delicate psychic tapestry they had woven. Owen's botanical defenses sprang into action. Tendrils of pure conceptual energy lashed out, isolating the infected sectors. He poured his will into purifying subroutines, fighting to contain the outbreak before it could spread. "Owen!" Xanus's voice cut through the psychic maelstrom. "We need a more permanent solution. These attacks will only escalate." As the immediate crisis subsided, Owen felt the weight of Xanus's words. The Fleet Marshal's avatar loomed before him, radiating steadfast perseverance. "We must go further," Xanus declared. "A true meeting of minds and essences." As Xanus outlined his audacious plan, Owen exchanged a weary glance with Gia. Once again, they stood on the precipice of the unknown, preparing to remake reality itself in the name of peace. Under Xanus's words hung in the air, Owen felt a surge of possibility coursing through his essence. "A true meeting of minds," Owen mused, his thoughts rippling through the idiosphere. "But how?" Gia's form shimmered as she grasped the concept. "We'd need to harmonize the foundational ontotopes," she said, her fingers already dancing across invisible interfaces. "Align the causal tensors to preserve each faction's core identity signature." As preparations began, Owen and Gia threw themselves into the task of shaping the cognosphere. Owen's botanical senses stretched to their limits as he wove intricate psychocausal buffers throughout the structure. Gia's expertise in metaphysical engineering proved invaluable as they reshaped the lattice's manifold matrices. He relived the Deathworld tribulations of a dozen species, felt the crushing weight of eons of struggle against a hostile universe. In the same moment, he sensed the other factions experiencing humanity's own trials. the unrelenting wars, the bitter fight for survival against nature's wrath. Through it all, Lawrence and the other humans acted as guides, their essences steady beacons in the storm of shared consciousness. Owen caught glimpses of Cygnus and Vortex, their once rigid belief structures bending under the weight of newfound empathy. As the immersion deepened, Owen felt a profound shift. The barriers between self and other blurred, replaced by a visceral understanding of their shared cosmic struggle. He saw fleeting moments of joy amidst unrelenting hardship, recognized the same indomitable spirit that drove all life to persevere. The cognosphere reached its peak, and Owen sensed a cathartic wave rippling through the assembled essences. Even the most hardened ideologues seemed transformed, their bigotry transmuted into awe at the resilience of all creation. As the immersion cycle concluded, Owen felt his consciousness slowly disentangling from the unified lattice. He emerged changed, forever bonded to those he had once seen as irreconcilable enemies. But as the factions began to reincorporate, Owen sensed a discordant note. A handful of essences rejected the shared insight, choosing continued exile from the nascent Enlightenment nexus. He recognized the psychic signatures of Vortex's most fanatic necrosphere acolytes among them. "They've rejected everything we've accomplished," Gia said, her avatar flickering with frustration. "We have a situation," the fleet marshal declared. "The exiles have established sovereign pocket realities. They're weaponizing residual Unmaker essence." "Meme plague detected," Gia shouted, her fingers dancing across ethereal interfaces. "They're targeting allied sectors." Xanas's voice cut through the chaos. "General Zorgax, initiate containment protocols." The battlefield shifted as allied tacticians sculpted intricate reality-folding geometries. Owen poured his will into reinforcing these metaphysical barricades, weaving layers of conceptual shielding. "We need a more permanent solution," Xanas declared, his avatar radiating grim purpose. "Lawrence, can you establish contact?" The human's essence pulsed with perseverance as he projected himself into the no-man's land between realities. Owen watched anxiously as Lawrence's avatar flickered, bombarded by waves of hostile mimetic energy. After what felt like an eternity, Lawrence's consciousness snapped back into alignment. "Limited communication established," he reported, "but they're not interested in compromise. They're building something, weapons beyond anything we've encountered." "Prepare for full-dimensional engagement," Xanas commanded, his voice resonating across multiple planes of existence. "We cannot allow these weapons to be completed." As the Enlightenment nexus mobilized for war, Owen felt a familiar dread creeping through his essence. He had hoped the cognosphere experiment would usher in an era of lasting peace. Instead, they found themselves on the brink of an even more devastating conflict. The air crackled with psychic energy as allied forces coalesced. Owen steeled himself for the battles ahead, knowing that the fate of cooperative civilization hung in the balance. The dimensional battlefield erupted into chaos as Xanas's forces engaged the Zealot exiles. Owen's botanical senses reeled from the onslaught of conflicting realities colliding across the psychic spectrum. Owen turned his attention to the anomaly, his essence recoiling at the sight. Within the exiles' quarantine zones, a pulsating mass of compressed hostility warped the very fabric of space-time. "Hadron psychosis," he breathed, recognizing the telltale signs of hypercondensed sophons bombarding adjacent noesis frames. Lawrence materialized beside them, his avatar flickering under the strain. "We need to contain this before it reaches critical mass," he said urgently. "If those infospatial blast fronts detonate—" "Total psychotropic annihilation," Xanas finished grimly. "Mobilize the entropic Planck interference fields. We must destabilize their containment systems." The air itself seemed to scream as virulent bioforms erupted from hidden caches. Owen's defenses flared instinctively, barely deflecting the first wave of infection. All around him, allied continua writhed as the self-catalytic hyperkinks took hold. "Our biosphere matrices can't keep up," Gia shouted, her form shimmering with strain as she fought to counter the spreading plague. Zorgax's forces retaliated, targeting anti-meme launch vectors with precision strikes. Reality shuddered under the exchanges, fundamental constants fluctuating wildly. In the midst of the chaos, Owen caught sight of Xanas conferring with a group of envoys. The fleet marshal's essence pulsed with urgency as he dispatched them towards splinter factions on the fringes of the conflict. "What's he doing?" Owen asked, deflecting another volley of hostile thought forms. "Seeking common ground," Lawrence explained, his voice tight with concentration. "If we can peel away enough moderates—" But time was running out. With each passing moment, the artificial singularity within the exile's stronghold grew more unstable. Owen sensed the mounting pressure as reality itself began to buckle under the strain. His words were cut short as a massive psychic shockwave rippled through the battlespace. For a moment, all combatants froze as the full weight of their actions became clear. They stood on the precipice of mutual assured destruction, with entropy poised to claim victor and vanquished alike. In that instant of clarity, Owen saw a glimmer of possibility, a chance, however slim, to pull back from the brink. But it would require a leap of faith, unlike any they had attempted before. "Gia," he said, his essence pulsing with newfound purpose, "I need you to recalibrate the cognosphere. We're going to try something unprecedented." Owen's daring plan unfolded across the multiversal battlefield. The recalibrated cognosphere pulsed with newfound purpose, its tendrils reaching out to both allies and adversaries alike. As the ontological crusade reached its climax, a wave of shared consciousness swept through the warring factions. The battlespace rippled with newfound understanding. Weapons of mimetic destruction faltered as their wielders grappled with sudden, overwhelming empathy. The artificial singularity at the heart of the exile's stronghold began to stabilize, its entropic hunger lessening in the face of this cosmic revelation. Yet pockets of resistance remained. Cygnus and his most devoted followers clung to their xenophobic ideologies, their minds fortified against the cognosphere's influence. "This changes nothing," Cygnus roared, his essence pulsing with defiance. "Humanity remains a threat to galactic order." Admiral Xanas materialized beside Owen, his avatar radiating calm authority. "The crusade is over," he declared, addressing all factions simultaneously. "But our work has only begun." Owen, Gia, and Lawrence stood at the forefront of a new initiative. Under Xanas's guidance, they began cultivating deeper connections between former adversaries. The cognosphere, once a weapon of last resort, became a tool for healing and understanding. Gia's fingers danced across ethereal interfaces as she fine-tuned the system. "We're seeing unprecedented levels of interspecies empathy," she reported, her avatar glowing with excitement. "But there's still significant resistance in some sectors." Owen nodded, his botanical senses stretching out to monitor the fragile peace. "We need to address the underlying fears," he said, "especially concerning humanity's potential." In return, the reptilians watched with growing respect as Owen and his fellow humans demonstrated remarkable adaptability. When a sudden ionic storm threatened to destabilize their fledgling colony, the humans' quick thinking and resourcefulness saved the day. Similar scenes played out across countless realities. Former enemies found themselves relying on each other's strengths, building bridges of mutual understanding and respect. As Owen surveyed the fruits of their labor, symbiotic outposts and collaborative terraforming projects stretching across the cosmos, he knew their work was far from finished. The path to lasting peace would require constant vigilance and an unwavering commitment to fostering understanding between all sentient beings. "It's astounding," Gia marveled, her avatar pulsing with excitement as she pored over the data. "The human metabolic pathways, they're unlike anything we've seen before." At a high-level briefing, Admiral Xanas addressed the gathered representatives. "This discovery presents both opportunity and risk," he intoned. "We must proceed with caution, lest we destabilize the very peace we've worked so hard to achieve." "Your reflexes are most impressive," hissed Szasz, a reptilian commander, after a sparring session left him soundly defeated. "Perhaps there is more to learn from your kind than we first believed." Not all reactions were so positive. In the corridors of power, Owen sensed a growing unease among certain factions. Whispers of Deathworlders and apex predators, echoed through encrypted channels. The situation came to a head during a routine terraforming operation. Owen, Gia, and a mixed team of human and alien specialists were overseeing the transformation of a barren protocluster when alarms blared across their neural interfaces. "Biohazard detected," Gia shouted, her avatar flickering with strain as she processed the incoming data. "The terraforming matrix is destabilizing." Owen's botanical senses reeled as he felt the ecosystem spiraling out of control. Mutant flora erupted from the ground, their tendrils writhing with unnatural vitality. In the sky, swarms of chitinous monstrosities blotted out the sun. "Emergency protocols activated," the station's AI announced, "initiating biosweep in T-30 minutes." "We need to secure the control nexus," Lawrence urged, his tactical subroutines already mapping out defensive strategies. "If those zealots gain access to the terraforming systems—" The air crackled with energy as competing ideologies clashed amidst the virological tumult. Owen steeled himself for the battle ahead, knowing that the future of human-alien relations hung in the balance. The crisis had only just begun. "This way!" Gia called out, her avatar flickering wildly as she struggled to maintain their secure channel. "I've found a path to the central hub." They sprinted through twisting corridors, dodging falling debris and grasping tendrils. Owen's lungs burned with exertion and the constant assault of airborne toxins. As they neared the nexus, a horrific sight stopped them in their tracks. Admiral Xanus's diplomatic envoys lay scattered across the floor, their bodies contorted in agony. Before their eyes, one of the alien diplomats began to shift and bubble, its form melting and reforming into something else. Owen nodded grimly, reaching deep into his Deathworld-honed reserves of strength. "Then it's up to us to stop this. Lawrence, we need a plan." "I've made contact with Screer Lord Tazir," she announced. "He's willing to assist, but we'll need to reach the secondary databanks." Owen grasped the offered hand, feeling the strength of newfound alliance. As the walls of reality buckled around them, human and alien stood united against the storm. Weeks later, Owen found himself aboard the Ascendant Arc Capital Station, accompanying Lawrence and Gia to an emergency summit. The vast chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from across Allied space gathered. Before Owen could respond, alarms blared. The floor lurched beneath their feet as entire sections vented to vacuum. Screams and shouts filled the air as pandemonium erupted. "It's a coup!" Lawrence shouted, grabbing Owen's arm. "We need to—" His words cut off as armored figures stormed the chamber. Owen's blood ran cold as he recognized the insignia. Praetor Guard. At their head strode a familiar face. Commander Darien. Owen's mind reeled. Zorgax, the reptilian general, had seemed a staunch moderate, yet there he was, striding into the room with a triumphant sneer. "Your corrupting influence ends today, humans," Zorgax hissed. "And you moderates—" He turned to Admiral Xanus, who stood frozen in shock. "You'll pay for your weakness." Gia's fingers twitched, clearly itching to access her neural interface. A guard noticed, striking her with the butt of his rifle. She crumpled to the ground. "Gia!" Owen moved to help her, but strong hands grabbed him from behind. "I wouldn't," Darian's voice was cold in his ear. "We have the station locked down. Cooperate, and you might survive this." A deafening rumble shook the station. Emergency klaxons wailed as red warning lights bathed the chamber. "What have you done?" Xanus demanded, his scales pale with fear. Zorgax's laughter sent chills down Owen's spine. "Insurance, Admiral. The reactor's fail-safes are offline. Unless our demands are met, this entire station goes nova, taking you, the human delegates, and all your precious diplomacy with it." Owen met Lawrence's eyes across the room. They both knew the stakes had just become apocalyptic. As Zorgax began listing his outrageous territorial demands, Owen's mind raced. There had to be a way out of this, some weakness they could exploit. A commotion near the sealed doors drew his attention. Guards wrestled with a new group of prisoners, humans in unfamiliar uniforms. Owen's heart sank as he recognized their leader, Tanya, Darian's ex-lover, and leader of the xenophobic Terran First Movement. Owen's gaze darted to where Gia lay, her eyes barely open but her fingers twitching in a familiar pattern. She was fighting a digital battle even as she feigned unconsciousness, but she couldn't do it alone. The future of human-alien relations hung by a thread, and the clock was ticking. "Tanya," Lawrence called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need your help." The xenophobic leader hesitated, conflict evident on her face. But as another tremor rocked the station, she made her decision. "What's the play?" Owen moved swiftly, helping Gia to her feet. Her fingers still twitched, interfacing with the station's systems. "We need to reach the core," he explained. "Gia's holding back total meltdown, but she needs direct access." Chaos erupted. Praetor Guard troops hesitated, torn between conflicting orders. In that moment of indecision, Tanya's mercenaries struck. Weapons fire filled the air as the two human factions engaged Zorgax's forces. Owen and Lawrence seized the opportunity, half carrying Gia as they made a break for the reactor access corridor. Behind them, they heard Darian's voice, thick with anguish. "Tanya, wait!" But there was no time for reunions or recriminations. The station groaned, entire sections venting to space as structural integrity failed. They raced through twisting corridors, dodging falling debris and electrical fires. "We're losing containment," Gia gasped, her eyes unfocused as she processed vast streams of data. "The quantum matrix is destabilizing." They burst into the reactor chamber, a cathedral of pulsing energy and swirling exotic particles. Owen's breath caught in his throat as he took in the scale of the devastation. Warning klaxons screamed as reality itself seemed to warp and bend. "There!" Lawrence pointed to a shielded control nexus. "Can you interface from there?" Gia nodded weakly, stumbling towards the console. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, weaving impossibly complex algorithms. Owen watched in awe as she battled against the laws of physics themselves. A deafening roar filled the chamber. Through reinforced viewports, Owen glimpsed space itself tearing apart. The infinite void beyond twisted and writhed, hungry tendrils of nothingness reaching for the dying station. "It's not enough," Gia whispered, tears streaming down her face. I can't stop it." As the universe unraveled around them, Owen caught a final glimpse of the chamber entrance. Tanya and Lawrence stood there, silhouetted against the inferno. Darian appeared behind them, his face a mask of regret and tenacity. Then, in a blinding flash of light, everything changed. Owen felt himself stretched, compressed, folded in ways his mind couldn't comprehend. For an eternal instant, he ceased to exist as a physical being. Gia's eyes widened in realization. "The Tesseract lifeline," she breathed. "It worked." Before Owen could process this revelation, the fabric of their new reality shuddered. Through cracks in space-time, he glimpsed the horror unfolding in their home universe. The singularity Zorgax had unleashed consumed everything in its path, erasing entire realities. "We have to warn them," Owen said, desperation clawing at his throat. "There has to be a way back, a way to stop this." Gia shook her head, her expression grim. "We can only watch now," she said softly, "and hope that somehow they find a way to survive."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.